The Society, a novel by Ch1 Grande. Cover art, Enrique Arce Miranda. Editors, Ch1 Grande and Janet Cabrera. Volume 1. Dedications. To my parents, who raised me to embrace my creativity. To Miss Berkowitz, who encouraged me to write down my daydreams. To my dear friends who pushed me to believe in myself. To God, who gave me the capacity to tell this story. Para mis abuelos, cuyo sacrificio trajo oportunidad y bendición. Preface, 10 years ago. The phone rang. Jacob slid out of bed and slowly made his way down the hall. He stood before the phone and hesitated. His hand hovered over it for a few seconds before carefully lifting the receiver to his ear. Hello? How is she? The voice was impatient. There was a tightness to it, as if the owner of this deep baritone was holding back his desire to growl. Jacob took a deep breath. She's a lot better. Great, actually. You've been avoiding my calls. No, of course not. I mean, it's been crazy over here, with caring for Ari and working full-time. He hasn't been able to get back to you like you asked. There was silence on the other line. Jacob waited, nervously. Make sure your father gives me a call when he gets home. There was an abrupt click followed by the dial tone. Jacob placed the phone back down and made his way to his sister's room. He stood there for a few seconds, wiping the sweat from his brow and regulating his breathing. Anger filled his veins. He hated Doc more than anything in the world. He pushed her door open quietly, as to not wake her suddenly. Ari was lying in bed, her blanket covering the bottom half of one leg. Her hair was spread all over her face and neck, covering her pillow and some of her shoulder. It was apparent she had been restless in her dreams. Maybe a nightmare? Jacob walked over and sat at the edge of his baby sister's bed. He gently brushed the hair out of her face and felt her temperature. She was still very warm. As her eyes fluttered open, she smiled up at him, those big amber eyes full of trust. She stretched her arms out over her head and then rubbed her eyes as a soft yawn escaped her tiny mouth. What's for breakfast? She sat up and smiled at him expectantly. Jacob scooped her hair into a high ponytail and pulled her into his arms. She rested her head on his chest and sighed contentedly. Will you make me pancakes? She tilted her head back and placed her hand on his chin so she could look him in the eyes. With chocolate chips. Jacob kissed her forehead and placed her on the ground as he got up to his feet. Okay, princess, we can have pancakes, under one condition. You have to beat me to the kitchen. He dashed out into the hall and heard Ari squeal in delight. She ran out behind him, running as quickly as her little legs could carry her. Chapter 1. I woke up to the ringing in my ears. My head was throbbing. I clenched my teeth as I willed my headache away. I tried to remember the last time I had actually slept peacefully through an entire night. I reached over to my nightstand and grabbed the bottle of medication. I took 4 pills and washed them down with a glass of water. I assumed my brother had left there. I let my head melt back into my pillow and waited for the drugs to take the pain away. My door squeaked open and the light flicked on. Hey, princess. How we doing? Same old, same old. I rolled over in my bed and pulled the covers over my eyes. The light sensitivity had been a recent development. The temples of my forehead were pulsating. I took shallow breaths as I tried to keep myself relaxed. Jake walked over and rested his arm on my back as he sat on the side of my bed. Ari, what's wrong? Is the medication not helping? He rubbed my back, trying to comfort me. I flinched as I opened my eyes and stared at the wall. Do you think you could hit the lights? I think they make my headache worse. He quickly hopped up and flicked the lights off. He came back to my bed, leaned in and kissed my forehead before walking out and closing my door behind him. I drifted back to sleep. Ellipses. I heard Jake's voice. I couldn't tell how much time had passed. I had gone in and out of unconsciousness for an unknown amount of time. My stomach growled loudly as I sat up in my bed. I don't know. I told you. She was fine all month. It's only been 2 days, so it's too soon to tell. Uh-huh. Well, he isn't home right now, so I can't really have him call you. No? Okay. I heard a phone click down the hall. My brother's heavy footsteps got louder and louder, till finally I heard the all-too-familiar creak of my bedroom door. I turned my head over and saw him peeking in. He grinned at me and came over to sit down at the foot of my bed. He looked me over and sighed as he brushed hair out of my face. You don't look too great. What happened? You passed out. I know that. I meant, who was that on the phone? A bit of the fire came back into his eyes. I knew who it was, but I needed him to tell me. Doc called. He wanted to know if he felt better yet. Also, he wanted to know why Dad hadn't called him back. As if he didn't already know. The guy's totally intrusive and lacks self-awareness. He tried to relax as he looked for a way out of this conversation. You hungry? I turned and looked at my clock. It was almost 2:30 in the afternoon. Jake? What day is it? My stomach growled violently, and I began to wonder when I'd eaten last. It's Thursday. You've been out for 2 days. Wait, what? 2 days? I had a presentation for Miss Blackwood today. Crap. I failed. I had just failed English class. Jake, did you by any chance call the school and let them know that Done, kid. I had my dad call right after you died on me. Oh, and by the way, your friends called. He paused and looked at me with an annoyed face. Jake hated having to deal with my friends. I completely understood him, since they were madly in love with him. They said that they missed you at school and offered to come over and help complete your assignments. I, of course, declined, but you did miss a lot of work. They kept calling every chance they got. You'll need to find a way to catch up. Now, I've got to go call Dad. Let him know you're awake and feeling better. I'll have lunch ready in 20 minutes. He got up and left me with my thoughts. Doc. So he'd been checking up on me. I felt comfort in that. The relationship between Doc and my family was complicated, to say the least. I'd only met him twice, and I was only one who didn't hate his guts. Before my mom had walked out on us, we'd been a picture-perfect family. I was, of course, way too young to remember this, but what I did know was that she'd had an affair and then left us. She'd abandoned my father to deal with raising us, my illness, and the mortgage on our house. My brother had dropped out of school and gotten a part-time job to help around the house, but eventually, we'd lost the house and moved back to the reservation where my dad grew up. It had been tough, commuting to a private school across town every day, but luckily I had my brother as a personal driver. Everyone at school ogled at him when he showed up in the parking lot with his Jeep. I knew he'd missed out on so much just to take care of me, so I let him enjoy the spotlight every morning. I'd been living with this illness ever since I could remember. My brother Jake had always been there. He was my personal angel. Whatever I needed, he'd give before I even asked. He was my rock, and ever since I could remember, he had hated Doc more than anything. The time I had spent with Doc had been limited but pleasant. Whenever he was around, my headache went away. I felt like I could breathe normally. I could see the light, and I felt extremely lightweight and relaxed. He was like the sun. He always had a joke to tell, and his deep, earthy laugh made me smile. He'd known my mom before she'd left, and would always tell me a small nugget of information about her when he visited.
You know, Ari, you have your mother's eyes,
He'd say.
Did I ever tell you your hair is just like your mom's?
Every time he said this, I would feel beautiful and proud to be her daughter.
Your mother loved you very much.
He told me this the last time he'd visited me.
I know there are rumors about why she left your father, but I need you to know she loved her family. The only thing that could have taken her away from you was the possibility of keeping you safe.
I had believed him. I still wanted to believe him. But my father's pain was something very real. My brother's hate was also undeniable. He'd never come back. Usually, people look forward to Fridays. It's the last day of the week. Everybody is excited and they can't wait for the weekend, right? Wrong. If I just spent my Thursday curled up at home with my brother, watching movies and drinking hot cocoa, then why would I want to get up and go to class? Well, because Friday is tutoring day, that's why. You see, when my father offered to let me stay home that morning, I told him I couldn't possibly miss 2 days in a row. I gave him this big speech on how the effects of such a long absence might be permanently damaging to my academic record. He let it go after that. I'd woken up way too early, then fallen asleep again, only to wake up late. It was way too late for a shower if I expected to get a ride from my brother, so I splashed my face with ice water, tied my hair in a bun. I'd brush it in the car. I then had to decide what to wear. I found an old superhero t-shirt in my drawer and threw a hoodie over it. My leggings would have to do. I slipped into my boots and ran downstairs. My brother was waiting in the driveway.
Sorry, Ari. No donuts today. Already running really late.
I sighed and sank into my seat. I was really looking forward to that donut. The Jeep's roof was open, so the wind made it impossible to successfully brush my hair. I closed my eyes and pretended to be Pocahontas as I braided my long hair all the way down my back. I was inhaling the smell of the corner bakery as we waited for the light to turn.
You look just like Mom sometimes, Ari.
You're almost her exact color, too. There was a great sadness in his voice. I turned to look at Jake. I'm sure what he said wasn't meant to make me angry or sad. It was a compliment. My mom was this beautiful woman who everyone had loved and admired. He'd known her even longer than I had, and they'd always been very close. I knew that her absence had taken a much bigger toll on him. He was able to acknowledge that, although she'd left us, there were many pleasant memories to be cherished. I wasn't that mature. I smiled awkwardly at him and then hopped up to kiss his cheek. Not sure of what to say next, I turned on the radio. I pretended to look for a specific station, fiddling around with the tuning till I landed on a country station, then relaxed back into my seat. We rode all the way to school in an awkward silence. I missed Mom too, in my own way. Today, I'm passing back the graded quizzes from yesterday. Some of you surprised me, and I'm quite pleased. Oh yes, Miss Keller, you have a quiz to make up before the finals begin. So I had a math quiz and an English presentation to make up. Great.